I will share a perspective that took me a long time to learn, and it completely shifted the way I view the financial markets. Many people who trade believe that their total success depends on finding a flawless entry, or mastering a specific chart visual, or uncovering some hidden method used by the top experts. However, that is not the actual source of lasting gains in this profession. True mastery in trading is really about gaining control over your own thoughts, and specifically seeing how the amount of money you risk alters your ability to stay neutral. I have spent many years watching market participants, including the winners, the ones who struggle, the gifted people who failed, and the regular individuals who finally reached their goals. A very distinct pattern stood out to me during that entire period. The survivors in this business were not always the most brilliant people. They were not necessarily the ones using the most advanced software or complicated strategies. Instead, they were the individuals who truly grasped the vital connection between the size of their risk and their mental state. Let me explain this idea to you clearly. When you begin your journey in the markets, you bring certain deep ideas with you. You have specific views about what winning looks like and what it means to be talented at a specific task. In nearly every other part of our lives, we are taught that bigger is always better. We believe that putting in more physical work leads to higher outcomes and that high intelligence should always be paid well. We are conditioned to think that working harder is the only way to get a payout. Naturally, we bring these same expectations into the world of trading. We wrongly assume that taking much larger trades shows we are more dedicated, more certain, and more serious about making wealth. We look at a small position and feel like we are being too careful, like we are not giving it our all, or are just being weak. On the other hand, a giant position makes us feel important. It makes us feel like we are finally making a move that matters, and that this single trade could change our bank balance and our whole life. But the cold reality is that the financial markets do not care about your inner feelings. The market is totally indifferent to your level of certainty. It gives no rewards for your hard effort, your brain power, or your level of dedication. The market moves only based on mathematical odds. Your only job is to put yourself on the side of those odds. You are not there to prove a point or make a big show, but to simply use your advantage over and over without any mental noise. That noise is born from strong emotions. And those emotions are triggered by taking a risk that is much too high for your nervous system to stay quiet. Let me explain the internal process that happens when you open a trade that is too large for your comfort level. At first, you might feel a rush of energy and high focus. You tell yourself that this is the big moment that will fix everything for you. But then the prices begin to shift. Maybe the market move goes against you just a bit, or maybe it goes your way but then starts to pull back, and suddenly your internal state shifts. Your breathing becomes short and fast. Your vision narrows down to the screen. You start to track every small price change. Every single bar on the chart feels like a personal insult to you. Every move feels like it is making a judgment on your worth. At this point, you are no longer trading with logic. You are just trying to survive. Your brain has seen a major danger. It is not a physical threat to your body, but a threat to your money, your pride, and your sense of being safe. When your mind enters this protective mode, it stops being sensible. It ignores the plan and stops following the rules. It starts making choices based on panic and a sense of emergency. You start having thoughts that feel very urgent. You tell yourself you should have taken the profit while it was there. You feel like you absolutely cannot take a loss on this specific trade. You think about moving your exit point just a little further away. You consider closing the trade right now before the situation gets any worse. These thoughts seem like common sense in the heat of the moment. They feel like you are being smart and guarding yourself, but they are not based on logic at all. They are really just emotional urges disguised as rational thinking. The reason this is happening is not that your strategy is broken. It is just because the amount you risked is too high for your mind to view the situation fairly. Here is a fact that many people do not realize. Your ability to stick to your rules is not a matter of your character. It is not about having a special kind of discipline like most people think. It is actually about whether your nervous system feels safe enough to let you follow those rules. When you are at peace, following a plan is very easy. You know exactly what steps to take. You have trust in your method. You act without any second thoughts. But when you are gripped by fear, following your own rules becomes nearly impossible because fear is meant to take over your brain. That is how humans are built to survive. If a wild animal were chasing you, you would not stop to study the most efficient path. You would just run and react based on your instincts to stay alive. When your position size is far too large, your brain sees a losing trade as a dangerous predator and views a drop in your account as a threat to your life. It takes over your choices to keep you safe. This is why people make the same errors time after time. It is not because they do not know what to do, but because they are operating in a mental state where their brain will not let them make the right choice. Let me show you the most common errors that happen when you take on too much risk, because I saw these patterns in almost every failing trader I helped. The first error is hesitation. When the stakes are too high, you start doubting your entry signals. You see the setup you studied. You know it meets all the rules, but you still freeze. You wait for even more proof that it will work out. You talk yourself out of taking the shot. Then the trade moves exactly as you hoped, and you feel angry at yourself. You promise to catch the next one, but the next one feels just as scary. So you pause again, or even worse, you jump in too late after the move has already started, and you get stopped out. This creates a painful cycle where you cannot trust your own actions. You cannot trade with confidence, and your results drop because your fear is ruining your timing. The second error is moving your protective stop loss. This is one of the most harmful habits you can have, and it almost always happens because you have too much money on the line. You set a trade with a logical exit point based on the market structure or the volatility of the asset, and it seems fine at the start. But when the price gets close to that exit point, the thought of the loss feels too heavy to handle. You cannot bring yourself to accept it, so you move the exit point further away. You lie to yourself and say you just believe in the trade. But the real truth is that the pain of being wrong is too much for you to face. Sometimes the market turns around and you feel a sense of relief. You think you made a smart choice. But usually it does not turn around. By moving that point, you turned a small loss into a massive disaster. You broke your safety rules and created a habit that will eventually destroy your account. The third mistake is closing out winning trades too early. When you are carrying a massive position, any profit feels very weak. It feels like the market could take it back at any second. So when the trade moves in your direction, you feel a desperate need to take the money and run before it goes away. You leave the trade way too early, and then you have to watch as it continues to go exactly where you thought it would without you. You feel cheated, but you do not see that the problem was not your target. The problem was your position size. If the trade was smaller, you would not feel that desperation. You would be able to stay calm and let your strategy work out. The fourth issue is holding on to losing trades for too long. This might sound like the opposite problem, but it comes from the exact same place. When a trade goes against you and the risk is too high, you simply freeze. You cannot bring yourself to close it. You just hope and pray it will come back. You tell yourself the move is only a temporary fluke. You ignore your exit points and your plan. You stay in because admitting the loss feels like a total failure as a person. By the time you finally give up, the damage to your account is much worse than it should have been. Every one of these blunders has the same starting point. The trade size is too big for your brain to handle calmly, and your mind is trying to protect you by taking control away from your plan and giving it to your anxiety. Now let me describe what it feels like when you trade with a much smaller amount. A size that feels almost too small to matter. A size that does not make your heart beat faster. First, you become mentally neutral. When the risk is small enough, the outcome of the trade stops being a big deal. It is just one more execution and another chance for your strategy to show its value. You set the trade and you do not dwell on it. You check on it when it is time. You handle it based on your plan, but your self-worth is not tied to whether it wins or loses. This calm state is where the best trading happens. Second, you can follow your plan without any internal struggle. Your exit point makes sense, and you honor it. Your profit goal makes sense, and you let the market reach it. Your entry rules are clear, and you act on them without stalling. There is no loud voice in your head trying to negotiate with you. There is no emotional battle, just peaceful action. Third, you allow the laws of probability to play out. This is the most vital part of the game. Trading is a game of chances. Your advantage is not that you win every single time. Your advantage is that over a long series of trades, your method makes more money than it loses. But for that math to work, you have to let it happen. You have to repeat the process over and over without messing with it. The only way to do that is to trade at a size where no single trade feels important. When each trade is just one out of hundreds, you stop trying to force the result. You stop needing to be right. You stop caring about the outcome of this specific moment. You just do the work and let the numbers do what they were meant to do. Fourth, being consistent finally becomes possible with a smaller size. You can trade the same way every single day. You can show up with a clear head. You can perform without any drama. You can build a record of success based on your process rather than on luck. Over time, that consistency builds up, not because you took massive risks, but because you avoided making massive mistakes. Let me talk about your ego for a moment because this is where most traders get stuck. Trading with a small size feels like you are not trying hard enough. It feels like you are settling or playing it too safe. For someone who is driven and wants to be successful, this feels wrong. You think that real pros take huge risks and that being confident means betting a lot of money. You think playing it small is for losers. But that is just your ego talking and not your logical mind. Your ego wants to feel important and significant. It wants to prove its worth to everyone. It wants to win in a way that looks impressive. But the market has no interest in any of that. The market rewards the person who can put their ego aside. It rewards the person who can act without needing to feel powerful. It rewards those who can accept small wins and small losses and just keep moving forward. Here is a truth that your pride will not want to hear. Trading is not personal. The market is not a judge of your character. It is not testing you or punishing your doubt. It is not rewarding your bravery or judging your fear. It is just a series of price moves based on odds. Your job is to take part in those moves without changing them with your feelings. When you take a giant position, you are making the trade personal. You are turning a simple statistical event into a test of your value as a person. That is a game that you will never win. There is another reason why people pick large positions. They think it gives them a sense of control. They believe that if they risk more, they can force the trade to work through sheer focus. But that is a total illusion. You have no control over the market. You cannot control what happens in the next few minutes or the next several hours. You cannot control whether a specific trade ends in a gain or a loss. The only things you truly control are your own actions, your risk levels, and your reactions. The bigger your position is, the less control you actually have over your mind. Because a huge position makes your emotions take the wheel. It makes you doubt yourself and walk away from your plan. Trading small is not giving up your power. It is actually how you take your power back. It gives you control over your mind, your process, and your ability to stay in the game until your strategy pays off. Let me tell you something I have seen over many years of work. Something that separates the people who make it from the people who quit. The primary goal is not to make a lot of money at first. The primary goal is simply to survive. Survival means not letting your account go to zero. It means staying in the game long enough to learn the ropes. It means not quitting because you are too mentally tired to keep going. Survival takes a lot of humility. It takes patience. It requires you to care more about the process than the money results. When you trade with a huge size, you are only thinking about the money. You are trying to force the market to give you what you want, and the market does not like being forced. But when you trade small, you are making survival your top priority. You are deciding to protect your money and your mental health. You are giving yourself the room to grow and find consistency. Over time, that survival naturally turns into profit, not because you took huge risks, but because you built up small wins without destroying yourself. Let me talk about the power of compounding for a moment because most people get it wrong. They think it means making huge percentages every month and getting rich fast. But that is not what real compounding is. Compounding is what happens when you can do the right thing every day for a long period without making a fatal error. It is the natural result of staying active in the market and not doing anything risky. It is about letting your strategy show its worth over hundreds or thousands of different trades. The only way to do that is to trade at a size that lets you stay calm and rational. When you trade too big, you break the compounding chain. You have a good week and then lose it all on one bad choice. You grow your account and then smash it trying to get a big win. But when you trade small, you create the perfect environment for compounding to work because you are not fighting your own brain. You are not letting greed or panic ruin your hard work. You are just showing up and letting the math work. Over time, that adds up to a very large amount. Not because one trade was a jackpot, but because you stayed in the game long enough for the edge to work. I want you to truly understand this point. Your advantage is not about being right on every single trade. It is about what happens over a long series of trades. A good plan might win 60% of the time. But even with that win rate, you will still lose 40% of the time. If you are trading with too much risk, those losing trades will break you. They will make you lose your confidence. They will make you doubt your method. They will cause you to break your own rules. But if you are trading small, those losses are just part of the process. They do not hurt you. They do not mean anything personal. They are just data points in a big set of numbers. When you can accept that losses are normal, you stop trying to avoid them. You stop moving your exit points and you stop hesitating. You stop cutting your gains short just to feel safe. You just do the work and let the odds play out. That is when your strategy really starts to work. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped getting in its way. This is what I have learned from watching the most successful people in this business. They are not the ones with the most exciting stories. They are not the ones who got rich from one lucky bet. They are not the ones who took massive risks and happened to win. They are the ones who are still here years later, still calm and still making money. They are durable, and that durability comes from trading in a way that does not burn you out. It comes from avoiding the things that trigger your worst impulses. It comes from never being in a spot where one mistake can end your career. Being excited is not a good thing in trading. Excitement is just another form of being emotional. And being emotional is the opposite of what you need to do this well. What you actually need is peace, clarity, and repetition. You get those things by trading at a size that feels almost boring, a size that does not give you an adrenaline rush, a size that lets you focus on the plan instead of the money. Let me bring this all together for you. Trading is not about the money itself directly. Trading is about performing a specific process, a process that has a mathematical edge over time. Your job is not to worry about what happens on any single trade. Your job is to perform that process as perfectly as possible without any interference or changes. The only way to do that is to take the intense emotion out of the work. And the only way to do that is to trade at a size that does not make your survival instincts kick in. When the risk is tiny, you can focus on the steps. You can ask yourself if you followed the rules and if you did the job correctly. If the answer is yes, then the trade was a success regardless of the financial result. In the long run, good performance leads to good money. It will not be perfect every day, but it will be consistent and something you can actually build on. Here is a question for you to ask yourself today. How do you define success in your trading? For most, success is just the dollar amount they made this week. But I want you to change that definition. Measure your success by how well you behaved, how calm you were, and how closely you followed your plan. Because if you can behave well, the money will eventually come to you. It might not happen today, but it will happen over time. If you cannot behave well, the money will never stay with you for long. You might get lucky for a bit, but your mistakes will take it all back eventually. So stop judging yourself based on things you cannot control and start judging yourself on your own actions. Did you trade small enough to stay calm, and did you follow your plan? If you did, then you won, even if the trade was a loss, because you are building the right habits. Let me tell you what happens when you finally start using small position sizes. You feel free. You are free from the constant stress and the need to watch every price move. You are free from the fear of losing your account. You can set a trade and walk away. You can let the market work without trying to control it. You can take a loss without feeling like your world is ending. That freedom changes everything for you. Because when you are not afraid, you can finally see the market for what it really is. You can act without doubting yourself. You can follow your plan without fighting your own mind. That is when trading becomes what it was meant to be. Not a stressful battle, but a calm and steady performance of a plan that works. I want to leave you with this final thought. This business is already hard enough, so do not make it harder on yourself. The market will always be unpredictable, and your results will always be based on chance. The outcomes of single trades will always be random, but your actions do not have to be random. Your performance does not have to be messy. Your feelings do not have to run the show. You can create a world where good trading is the natural result. You can build an environment where your plan works without you messing it up. And that environment starts with how much you risk. Trade in a way that feels small, smaller than what feels exciting, and small enough that you can stay at peace. Because staying in the game is the most important thing of all. If you can survive with consistency, the results will show up on their own. Not because you forced them to happen, but because you finally stepped out of the way and let your advantage work. That is the real truth of position sizing, and it will change your life if you let it.